Exodus 3. Now Moses was tending the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flocks to the back of the desert and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. Now, here it says that his father-in-law's name was Jethro, but in Genesis 2 we read that his father-in-law's name was Reuel. They both refer to the same person. And this Moses is now, after he killed that Egyptian and fled Egypt, this is 40 years later. So between Exodus 2 and Exodus 3, this is 40 years later. So Moses has been living and carrying on. The Israelites have been in slavery for another 40 years. And then this verse opens with Moses feeding or tending to the flocks. Verse 2, and the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire from the midst of the bush. So Moses looked, and behold, the bush was burning with fire, but the bush was not consumed. Then Moses said, I will now turn aside and see this great sight, why the bush does not burn. Now what's interesting here is, was the bush literally on fire? Or was it the fire of God being manifested, in other words, the glory of God? And you'll see that later on the mountain. So it's quite interesting. It's the first time I've thought about this. Is, it's like when the spiritual comes into the natural, that appearance in the bush, because remember we're going to see later that the Lord speaks to Moses from the bush. So was it literally on fire, or was that fire a spiritual fire that was seen and manifest in the natural? Or maybe the bush was on fire. So when the Lord saw that Moses turned aside to look, God called to Moses from the midst of the bush and said, Moses, Moses. And he said, Here I am. Then the Lord said, Do not draw near this place. Take your sandals off your feet, for the place where you stand is holy ground. And see, here again is easy entering almost like into the heavenly realms in what is happening. Is God doing a miracle here? Because even, our walk, Jesus, when you read the New Testament, it says a lot of the time when the people came into the people's house, they washed their feet. Why? Because they were contaminated from walking on the earth, which we know is corrupt. And that's where Satan is crawling around. And also when Peter said, he first said, Lord, Lord, no, you can't wash my feet. Jesus said, well, then you have no part in me. And then Peter says, I'll wash my whole body. And the Lord said, no, Peter, you are already clean. I only need to wash your feet. So it's just interesting again, this for me. Verse 6, moreover, God says, I am the God of your father, the God of Abram, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look upon God. So here again, God refers to Moses, or says to Moses, I'm the God of your father, Abram, Isaac, and Jacob. And then if we follow that birth, one of the sons of Jacob was Levi, his son was Kohath, and his son was Amram, and from Amram was born Moses. So he's literally in that same genealogy. So I'm going to read verse 6 again. Moreover, he said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abram, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look upon God. And the Lord said, I have surely seen the oppression of my people who are in Egypt, and have heard their cry because of their taskmasters, for I know their sorrows. So I have come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up to the land, to a good and large land, to a land flowing with milk and honey, to the place of the Canaanites, and the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites. What's interesting here for me is 6 nations, which is the number of man, 6. Now therefore, behold, the cry of the children of Israel has come to me, and I have also seen the oppression with which the Egyptians oppressed them. Come now therefore, I will send you to Pharaoh, that you may bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. But Moses said to God, Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and that I should bring the children of Israel out of Egypt? And God said, I will certainly be with you, and this shall be a sign to you that I have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall serve God on this mountain. So God obviously had the burning bush up on a mountain, and Moses was probably in the valley or somewhere with the sheep and that, and he saw this burning bush, and that's what drew his attention, that the flame just seemed to go on and the bush wasn't consumed. So he went up to that mountain. Verse 13. Then Moses said to God, indeed, when I come to the children of Israel and say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you, and they say to me, what is his name? What shall I say to them? And God said to Moses, Aheh, Asher, Aheh. And we have in our Bibles, I am who I am. But it can also be, I will be what I will be. And he said, thus you shall say to the children of Israel, I am, and again that I am is Aheh, has sent me to you. Moreover, God said to Moses, thus you shall say to the children of Israel, the Lord God of your fathers, the God of Abram, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, has sent me to you. This is my name forever, and this is my memorial to all generations. Go and gather the elders of Israel together and say to them, Yud-Heh Vav-Eh, the Lord or the God of your fathers, the God of Abram and of Isaac and of Jacob, appeared to me, saying, I have surely visited you and seen what is done to you in Egypt. And I have said, I will bring you up out of the affliction of Egypt to the land of the Canaanites and the Hittites and the Amorites and the Perizzites and the Hivites and the Jebusites, to a land flowing with milk and honey. Milk and honey means like fat cows and lush, plants being fertilized with the bees. So a productive land, a fertile land. Verse 18, then they will heed your voice, and you shall come, you and the elders of Israel, to the king of Egypt, and you shall say to him, the Lord God of the Hebrews has met with us, and now please let us go 3 days' journey into the wilderness, that we may sacrifice to the Lord our God. But I am sure that the king of Egypt will not let you go. No, not even by a mighty hand. No, not even by a mighty hand. So I will stretch out my hand and strike Egypt with all the wonders which I will do in its midst. And after that, he will let you go. And I will give this people favor in the sight of the Egyptians. In other words, Israel, you will get favor in the sight of Egypt. And it shall be that when you go up, you shall not go empty-handed. So here again, God is making a prophetic utterance of after the 10 plagues. In other words, after he's killed the firstborn who don't have the blood on the doorpost, he's already saying, but every woman shall ask of a neighbor, namely of her who dwells near her house, articles of silver, articles of gold, and clothing, and you shall put them on your sons and on your daughters. So you shall plunder the Egyptians. Now this isn't even happened yet, because the first plague hasn't even started. And yet God is prophesying how they will leave with this abundance of wealth.